What's up, everybody? It is Flamin' Ricky DeRays, right here with my Monday Night Raw review from September 12th, 2022. Overall thoughts on this show was Raw this week, surprisingly, was actually a huge improvement over last week's episode of Raw. But really, before I get into that, I'm going to give you guys my thoughts on how I feel about WWE television, of course, ever since Triple H took over. Realistically, I feel like the shows have gotten much, much better. Now, are they still like fantastically amazing shows? Absolutely not. They still have their flaws, but slowly, week by week, and month by month, WWE is showing the audience that, hey, change is coming in the air. And I think, Raw, in my opinion, for the past couple of weeks has basically become a little more watchable. And it's, watching those 3 hours is very difficult, but at the same time, they're trying to find a formula that can fit, those 3 hours in which they probably won't insult your intelligence, if that makes any sense. But realistically, I thought Raw this week was a pretty good show in my eyes, much better than last week. I actually thought last week, which was the Raw after Clash at the Castle, was kind of a letdown, mainly because of the fact that we had all the wrestling that we had that weekend. But realistically, in my opinion, the show really wasn't that good. But I'm loving the storylines that Raw is doing right now, especially on Raw. I am really loving the Judgment Day right now and the storyline that they're telling with Dominic Mysterio. Of course, we have that fantastic feud with both Matt Riddle and Seth Rollins. Of course, Johnny Gargano is back. We have a rematch for the WWE Women's Tag Team Championships with Aliyah and Raquel Rodriguez defending their championships against Damage CTRL, that being Dakota Kai and Io Sky, a.k.a. Io Shirai, in which they finally, made the right decision in actually putting the freaking belts on Dakota and Io Shirai, which was what they should have done like 2 weeks ago in the finals of the Women's Tag Team Championship tournament. And, of course, we have the main event, that being Edge versus Dominic Mysterio, which, of course, ended in a DQ, but overall was a fantastic match, and I love the story that they were telling throughout the entirety of the show, building up to this match as well. And another thing I want to mention is put the championship on fucking Kevin Owens after that fantastic promo that he cut on Austin Theory. It was amazing, but we'll talk about that later on right here on the review. But before I get on with all of this craziness regarding Monday Night Raw, make sure to like and subscribe to the WrestleHavoc Podcast right here on YouTube, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content, and as the freaking referee would say, ring, ring, ring that damn bell for more notifications. Also, the WrestleHavoc Podcast is available on audio platforms. It's available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, and Google Podcasts. So if you guys want to check out the WrestleHavoc Podcast in audio format, it is available on all of those platforms. The link will be in the description below. But yeah, man, let's talk about Monday Night Raw this week. As I've stated at the top of this show, Monday Night Raw, I don't want to say drastically improved, but there are a lot of improvements regarding the show. I feel like the flow of the show, it flows much better than what it did previously, because if you guys watched Raw under Vince McMahon, they'd cram like a bunch of shit that was absolutely meaningless on that show. Like, they would cram like a random 24 segment that would like interrupt one match that's going on. Realistically, they would add a bunch of backstage segments that made no sense. We had a bunch of matches booked that would honestly end in DQ finishes. We'd have constant rematches over and over again. Realistically, if you actually watch the show now, they kind of dimmed it down a lot with those rematches. Well, which I'll admit, which is a good thing, because there's a whole debate on rematches on social media. You have some of these people saying, oh, but if AEW did, rematches, you wouldn't complain. You're right, I wouldn't complain. The reason why I wouldn't complain is because AEW does not give constant rematches for matches that we realistically do not give a shit about on a weekly basis. WWE under Vince McMahon, on the other hand, we'd get rematches of matches that we've, number one, already saw like 5 times already, and a match that, we just don't care about. So they'd give us meaningless rematches for the sake of meaningless rematches. And again, as I've stated earlier, they have dimmed it down. But without me further talking about that, let's talk about Monday Night Raw and the show itself. So Seth Rollins kicks off Monday Night Raw. Seth Rollins is over as hell with his theme music. Of course, if you guys watched Clash at the Castle in his match against Matt Riddle, you saw Seth Rollins just go, he came out and the entire crowd in Cardiff were just singing his song. And tonight was no different. And this has been the case for the past couple of months already. But I feel like it's gone much more louder. And I genuinely believe that, Seth Rollins is fantastic at what he does. And I absolutely love his current character. I love the Visionary character. I think at first when I first saw it, I thought it was really stupid. But then, over time, it started to grow on me. And that's what I really liked about it. But the crowd is singing his theme music. Rollins screams Portland, Oregon. Of course, Portland, that's where Raw was this week. He welcomes everybody to Monday Night Raw. And you guys already know what I'm going to say about this. Look, I hate the fact, and even under Triple H, look, I hate when they do welcome to Monday Night Raw. I think it's so forced, but I don't know. About this one, Seth Rollins under character, of course, he's like, welcome to Monday Night Raw. And so really that's something different, but I'm not really that big of a fan of wrestlers like introducing everybody to Monday Night Raw. Like, just go straight with the action. That's just my opinion. He introduces himself for this evening and talks about how he is the face of Raw. He is the visionary, the revolutionary. He is Seth freaking Rollins. And then he says, small pause, because the crowd is basically singing his music. He has no question. He has a question for the fans, and he asks the crowd, do we believe in karma? Good things are good things, and bad things are bad people. He was skeptical when 9 days ago, when he beat Matt Riddle, he stomped his head twice. He had 60,000 fans singing his song, and it's come to his attention that Matt Riddle is living, or I should say Seth Rollins himself is living rent-free in Matt Riddle's head, because he requested a rematch, which, by the way, he did request a rematch. I believe it was in an after-match interview that was uploaded on WWE's YouTube channel, in which he was saying that he wants a rematch, and that match is definitely going to happen. They just didn't announce it yet. So he asks everybody in the crowd, what is next for Seth Rollins? Seth talks about how when he asked himself that exact question over the past week, and we get a bunch of rematch chants from the crowd, but at this point, Seth Rollins gets pissed off and, of course, does his little heelish tactics right there. He screams when he is not interested in a rematch with Riddle. Talks about what he is interested in is the fact that it's been too long since he had held championship gold, and Matt Riddle comes out. Riddle runs to the ring, and both men brawl. And this has been a common occurrence ever since SummerSlam. Of course, if you guys do not know, originally Seth Rollins versus Matt Riddle was supposed to be booked for SummerSlam, but under Triple H, they actually, waited up until Clash at the Castle because they wanted to build the match much more. And there were times where Seth Rollins and Matt Riddle would open up Monday Night Raw and actually just brawl without, just any further introduction, which was actually fantastic. I actually loved that touch. But Seth Rollins and Riddle both brawl. The brawl would lead into the crowd. So after that, he basically what happens is Rollins drives him into the corner. Then Riddle throws Rollins to the outside, but then Rollins drives Riddle head first onto the announce table. Rollins then runs away in the crowd. Rollins then gauges the eyes of Riddle, but then Rollins runs away. Riddle then is behind him, but then Judgment Day's theme hits. And what happens is Balor and Damian Priest enter the fray. Now, at this point, the brawl within Seth Rollins and Riddle is done, but of course their feud is far from over. But what happens is Matt Riddle is in the center of the ring, and you have both Damian Priest and Finn Balor walk up to Finn Balor in the ring. So Balor asks him to chill, and, they want to take it easy. They enter the ring. And basically, Damian Priest states that they go way back. Of course, he's talking about their NXT days. Then all of a sudden, he says that they want to offer Riddle a spot. Not too long ago, they were all in the same situation. Somehow, something or someone would hold them back. They are here to change that for Riddle. Balor tells Riddle about Dominic, talks about how Dominic has stepped away from his father's shadow, and says he is going to be taking care of Edge tonight. Riddle has problems, and then they are problem solvers. Priest says the crowd wants to, Priest basically states that the crowd wants to join him, even though the crowd is saying the exact opposite. which is pretty funny. But he says that, you better join us or you will fall against us. And says Riddle says that they do go back, but right now his focus is on Seth. And all of a sudden, Riddle basically replies with, "No, bro." Balor says maybe his brain is a little too cloudy since it's more relaxed in Portland, Oregon, which was probably the best line of this entire segment, in my opinion. That was a funny-ass line that Balor made right there. And says that he is very clear. He either stands with them or they stand in their way. Riddle, then all of a sudden, in retaliation, knees the shit out of Finn Balor. And after that, he takes Priest to the outside, and we go to commercial break. And once we're back from break, we got Finn Balor versus Matt Riddle. Pretty good match overall. It was not a bad match at all. I mean, every time when Balor and Riddle are in the ring, or anytime when both of these wrestlers wrestle any type of match, they always give their all. Balor's in control over Riddle with a couple of chops into the corner. Riddle then fires back with a kick, but then Riddle hits a series of gut-wrench suplexes, I believe it was, followed by a Broton. We get a cover and a near fall by Riddle. Balor then goes for the kick. Balor proceeds to regain control, and he works on the knee of Riddle. Balor then works on the floor of Riddle. Riddle then goes to the top, but then Balor drives Riddle down to the mat. Balor then stomps onto the neck of Riddle, then applies the side headlock. Riddle once again escapes, misses the Broton, but then Balor drives repeated elbows onto the back of the neck of Riddle. But Balor once again drives the elbow. Then after that, we get a snap suplex by Balor on Riddle, but then we get a cover by Balor and a near fall. After that, he applies the crossface submission on Riddle into the center of the ring, but then Riddle gets up on his feet. Balor then is behind Riddle, but then Balor counters with a neck breaker. We get a cover and a near fall. Damian Priest then is on the outside, but then Balor drives his foot onto the neck of Riddle. Balor then goes for repeated rights, but then Riddle with the head scissors takes Balor to the outside. Riddle at this point is on the apron, but then he tries to hit the running kick, but Priest is on the outside with the distraction. Of course, Priest, part of the Judgment Day. He's doing with all the distractions. Typical heel shit. Balor then regains control. He misses a stomp on Riddle and then on the apron. Riddle then fights back, but then he proceeds to pick up Balor, but Balor escapes. Balor then drives Riddle down onto the apron. Once we're back from commercial break, Balor is in control. Then Riddle fires back with a fisherman suplex on Balor. We get a bunch of overhand chops by Riddle, then followed by a boot, and then he goes for the overhead kick. At this point, Balor is in the corner. After that, we get a bunch of running forearms by Riddle. Then he hits another fisherman suplex, but then Balor rolls to the outside. Riddle is on the apron, but then he hits a running kick on Balor, followed by the floating bro onto the outside. At this point, both are in the ring, but then Riddle counters the sling blade attempt that Finn Balor tried to hit with the jumping knee. At this point, Riddle goes to the top, and then Priest, once again, goes for the distraction. After that, Balor goes for the roll-up, and we get a near fall. Balor misses the kick, but then Balor drives Riddle down to the mat. And then Rey Mysterio all of a sudden attacks Priest. Of course, currently Judgment Day is feuding with Rey Mysterio and Edge. And, of course, Dominic is their new member. So Rey Mysterio basically is getting some involvement during this match. Riddle then goes for the bro to sleep, which is basically his version of the GTS. Followed by a German suplex. We get a cover by Riddle and a near fall. Riddle then drags Balor, but then goes to the top. Then he misses the floating bro, but then... Well, actually, no. He goes for the floating bro, but then Balor gets the knees up. After that, Balor goes for the shotgun dropkick, and you know his shtick at this point. He is in control. Balor goes to the top. He misses the coup de grace attempt. Riddle then takes Finn to the middle rope and hits the DDT. At this point, Riddle is exciting the crowd. He sets up the RKO attempt, but... Rollins makes the distraction. Riddle grabs him for the DDT attempt, but Balor gains the advantage after that. He drives him to the mat. Balor goes to the top. He hits the coup de grace cover, and Finn Balor wins the match with basically, the distraction of Seth Rollins. And then what would happen is Rollins would continue to attack Riddle in the near future after that. So what would happen is Rollins would hit the curb stomp on Riddle, screaming over and over again that they are over and they need to move on. At this point, Seth Rollins leaves the ring. So where is this leading to? Now, of course, we all know that the Judgment Day is currently feuding with Rey Mysterio and Edge, and, that is not, for the foreseeable future, that's going to be the case. But when it comes to Riddle, Of course, we're definitely going to be getting a rematch between both Seth Rollins and Riddle. I definitely see that being the case, most likely at Extreme Rules. Hopefully they do maybe a steel cage match or a fucking Extreme Rules match. 2 out of 3 falls, 3 stages of hell. I don't even know what type of match, but I do believe, my belief is there's going to be somewhat of a stipulation added to this next match that's going to be happening. But overall, once again, I'm actually really invested in both of these feuds that are happening simultaneously. I love the fact that they're kind of combining feuds like that. AEW kind of does the same thing as well. But this whole feud with Judgment Day and, the Mysterios, or I should say Ray and Edge, because Dominic is now part of the Judgment Day. I'm enjoying that feud, and also the feud with Riddle and Seth Rollins. Those feuds both of them are fantastic in my opinion. But overall, Rollins and Riddle, I definitely do see them having to wrestle at Extreme Rules. I think that's possibly going to be the ruined match, and I do believe that there will be a stipulation added. Damage CTRL with the backstage interview. Of course, they are going to be facing Raquel Rodriguez and Aliyah in a rematch, I should say, for the Women's Tag Team Championships, in which they actually did win the championships, which I will talk about later on in this review. Tonight, they will make things right, and they will be in control. Bayley talks about pinning Bianca, but actually, no, she gets asked about pinning Bianca, but ignores the question and leave, of course, because they have heel shit to do, and they also have to focus on their Women's Tag Team Championship match. Next, we got the Dominic promo. And again, Dominic has been absolutely fantastic. I wouldn't necessarily say fantastic because it's only been a week, so I can't really give my full opinion on it. But I think having Dominic join the Judgment Day was definitely the right decision to make, considering the fact that realistically, Dominic was kind of like, again, of course, the storyline, they always say, Dominic was always in his father's shadow, and that is true. I mean, they had him tag team with his father for like over a year at this point, and realistically, what they should have done was kind of do something different when it came to Dominic, and I feel like joining Judgment Day was definitely the right call to make. Now, he cuts this promo, and, in a way, I feel like it kind of got a mixed reaction. I didn't mind it at all. I mean, I feel like some people, when it comes to promos, I mean, Dominic, I thought Dominic's promo was pretty good in my opinion. It wasn't like the best promo somebody's ever cut, but it was decent. He cuts a promo, says that he has been known as the son of the legendary Rey Mysterio. That all changed at Clash at the Castle because for the first time, he felt alive. He became his own person. He was done with the disrespect and battling it inside. And Edge got exactly what he deserved. Of course, that was basically revenge over the fucking spear that Edge caused by accident on Dominic Mysterio a couple of months ago on Raw. Talks about tonight he's going to finish what he started. And he talks to his own father, Rey Mysterio, and says that he knows he is disappointed. But that is too bad because it's his life, not his. He should look in the mirror. Why? Why did he not bother to get to know him? Instead of teaching why, he didn't ask for what he wanted to ask for his career. For a tiny man, he casts a large shadow, and he is done living under it. Rhea, at this point, is in his ear. And everybody was talking about this on social media, which was absolutely funny, man. Because, ever since, Rhea be attacking Dominic all the time, everybody would be making jokes across Twitter. The funniest shit ever. But then Dominic says that he is not his baby boy anymore, and he is a man. So again, what are my thoughts on Dominic, with this promo? I thought it was a decent promo. It was not a bad promo. Of course, he had a little bit of a different tone, of course, because he's a heel now. But, I think it's a step in the right direction, in my opinion, at least. I know some people did not like the promo, but, I think he will get there. I think he will get there, and eventually he will, I believe at least, he will have some success. But this current storyline that he's in with his own father, hopefully I would love to see a match between both him and Rey Mysterio. That'd be a fantastic match, in my opinion. That's like a match that everybody wants to see right there. But overall, that was a great match overall. Of course, we had a video package of Johnny Gargano's return. Of course, he returned to Monday Night Raw. He's one of the many returns that Triple H has had ever since he took over creative for WWE. And I'll give you guys my thoughts on that later on as well. Theory backstage introduces to Chad Gable, which will be Johnny Gargano's first opponent on his Raw debut, and says that Johnny Wrestling is everybody is going to know him as Johnny Shush. So once again, Chad Gable doing his own shush stick. So we get Damage CTRL versus Aliyah and Raquel Rodriguez in a rematch of the finals of the Women's Tag Team Championship Tournament. Now, of course, the reason why this match has happened is because of the fact that the argument is that Dakota wasn't the legal woman. And I remember watching that and not really paying attention to that. And these are my thoughts. Look, my thoughts on, and I've stated this in my class review, but I'm going to reiterate this. My thoughts on the Women's Tag Team Championship Tournament was I appreciate the effort that they were doing, because under Vince McMahon, after Sasha and Naomi walked out, they announced a tournament, and they literally, you had Michael Cole on commentary on SmackDown say, Sasha and Naomi let us all down. And they announced a tournament, and we literally waited weeks and weeks and weeks, and we had no idea what the hell they were doing for this tournament. Management did not even know what the hell that they were doing for this tournament, if you really think about it. And, once Vince McMahon left, we didn't know anything about this tournament either. So, realistically, we got nothing from these people about what was going to happen with this tournament. But what happened was, again, a couple of weeks into Triple H, after taking over, they announced a Women's Tag Team Championship Tournament. And we all saw the brackets, and a lot of people were kind of upset that Sasha and Naomi were not a part of these brackets. And when it came to this tournament, everybody was like, oh, the catalyst is going to be Sasha and Naomi. They're going to be in this big storyline. Now, we do not know what the future holds for both Sasha Banks and Naomi. My guess is most likely if they were going to return to wrestling, it's not going to be AEW, even though they're not signed to the company, I believe. I think their contracts were up a couple of months ago. But I think they're not going to go to AEW at this point. I think the most logical choice for Sasha and Naomi right now is definitely WWE, but so far we hadn't got that yet. But, yeah, man, we had the Women's Tag Team Championship Tournament, and the pros were the Women's Tag Team Championships were getting a little more focused, but at the same time, you had no real women's tag teams in the entire tournament. Another pro of the tournament was the fact that if you actually compare it to the Queen's Crown tournament that happened last year, the length of the women's matches were much longer than the length of the Queen's Crown tournament matches, because if you watch the Queen's Crown tournament, it can be a whole tournament that you can literally scramble through in like less than an hour. The women's matches that were taking place in the Queen's Crown tournament literally were like less than like 2 minutes. Like that's how like quick those matches went by. So that was great as well. But my biggest problem with this was the fact that they actually had Raquel and Aliyah beat Dakota Kai and Io Sky. Now, granted, there was a reason for that in storyline because of the fact that, quote-unquote, Dakota wasn't the legal woman, but it realistically made absolutely no sense to put the titles on Aliyah and Raquel Rodriguez, because the most logical choice would have been Damage CTRL, because they're the hottest thing right now in the women's division, along with Bayley. So I was really upset about that, and I was like, what? Why would they fucking do this? This makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. Fast forward 2 weeks later, of course, WWE found the screw up that they did and actually put the championships on Dakota Kai and Io Sky, which was definitely the right decision to make, because I feel like with the Women's Tag Team Championships around the waists of Aliyah and Raquel Rodriguez, there would be absolutely no direction whatsoever, in my opinion. There would be no direction whatsoever, and they would really do nothing with those titles. But at least with, Dakota Kai and Io Shirai, they would actually have some sort of direction with those championships. But, yeah, let's talk about Io Sky and Dakota Kai versus Aliyah and Raquel Rodriguez, of course. Io and Raquel are fighting it out. Raquel is in control. Aliyah makes the tag, then hits the double sledge of the middle rope. Io sends Aliyah into the corner. Aliyah takes her down. We get a kick by Io Shirai. She picks up Aliyah, but then Aliyah escapes. Then we get a jumping hip toss. At this point, Dakota on the outside drags her to the middle rope. We get a drop kick to the back of Aliyah. At this point, Dakota makes the tag. Dakota then sends Aliyah to the corner. We get a running boot by Dakota. We get a cover and a near fall. After that, Io tags in. At this point, Io is in control over Aliyah. Then after that, we get the double knees in the corner on Aliyah. Dakota makes the tag. Dakota's in control, but then Io makes the tag once again. She continues to work on Aliyah. So at this point during this portion of the match, Aliyah is just getting absolutely slaughtered. So she continues to work on Aliyah. Aliyah fights back and hits the knee. After that, she tries to tag in, but then we get the waist lock by Io Sky. After that, Io continues to pull her back from making the tag. Dakota tags in, but then both heels hit the double suplex attempt. At this point, Aliyah hits the double neck breaker. After that, countering both Dakota and Io. After that, Raquel makes the tag. She pushes Io on Dakota. We get repeated clotheslines by Raquel Rodriguez. She goes for, after that, repeated clotheslines followed by a fall-away slam. After that, Raquel goes for the twisting elbow from the middle rope. She picks up Dakota. Aliyah makes the tag, but then hits the boot on Dakota. After that, she takes Aliyah and drops her on Dakota. After that, we get a cover into near fall. At this point, Io is up on the shoulders of Raquel Rodriguez. Both then get taken to the outside. After that, we get a roll-up by Aliyah, and we get a near fall. Dakota then goes for the jawbreaker. Then Aliyah face plants Dakota. We get a cover and a near fall when Bayley tries. Oh, actually, no. She takes the foot of Dakota and puts it on the bottom rope. The referee did not see that, of course. Aliyah then goes for the dropkick, taking out Bayley. Raquel then faces off with Bayley. At this point, Io goes for the moonsault. Then we get the code red attempt by Dakota. We get a cover and Damage CTRL win the women's tag team championships. Overall thoughts on this match. Overall, I definitely enjoyed what I watched. It was a great match overall and definitely the right decision to make. It was 100% the right decision to make by putting those championships on Dakota and Io. It made no sense for Aliyah and Raquel to win those championships in the first place. So I love the fact that they actually rectified that shit. But yeah, man, overall, it was a pretty good match. Dominic backstage, Ray confronts Dominic at this point, and Ray is just constantly talking to Dominic, but Dominic is actually completely ignoring Rey Mysterio. So at this point, Ray says that he is sorry, and he doesn't have to go through the match with Edge, but there's still a chance that they can fix this. He gives him a chance to make things right, but Dominic continues to ignore. Then after that, he begs him not to fight Edge because Edge is like a brother to him. He is like a cousin to him. Of course, that he's referring to Dominic, and says that Edge is dangerous, but then Rhea comes in and leaves with Dominic. Again, I'm absolutely loving the storyline that they're telling with Dominic and Judgment Day. And the match that we had between Edge and Dominic, even though it ended in a DQ, was a really realistically a justifiable DQ finish. And I'll talk about this later on in the review. It was fantastic. And, Edge definitely delivered a good match. We got Johnny Gargano it is his in-ring debut, but he did wrestle on Raw before back in 2019. He will face Chad Gable in this match. And what are my thoughts on Johnny Gargano making his return to WWE and joining the Raw brand? I think this was definitely a fantastic decision by Triple H. I genuinely believe that, having Johnny Gargano on the roster, I mean, if you guys haven't watched Johnny Gargano in NXT, man, this guy was like literally the face of that fucking brand. If you thought NXT, you thought guys like Johnny Gargano. This guy was like right there, the John Cena. Maybe I'm over exaggerating a little bit, but he was literally like that over with the audience. He was fantastic. But I love the fact that Johnny Gargano is now a part of the main roster. Everybody thought he was actually going to be going to AEW, but once Triple H took over, and this is the key thing that I will say here. Once Triple H took over, you knew for a fact Tony Khan, or I should say Triple H, was not going to let Tony Khan sign Johnny Gargano. There was no fucking way in hell that he was going to let Tony Khan sign this dude. Absolutely no chance in hell, no pun intended. But again, man, it's great to see Johnny Gargano in a WWE ring, and I'm really excited to see the future for Johnny Gargano. And this is, of course, a slew of returns. This is just one of the returns. Of course, we had Karrion Kross a couple of months ago, and he's doing things with Drew McIntyre right now on SmackDown. Most likely, we will have a match between both Karrion and Drew in the near future. But with Johnny Gargano, what is going to be his main feud going into possibly Extreme Rules? I genuinely see him Wrestling Theory, because they definitely teased that for the past couple of weeks, and it's going to be great. It's going to be great. And this match that he had with Chad Gable was absolutely fantastic. Fantastic showing by both Johnny Gargano and Chad Gable. Chad Gable is another guy that, has a ridiculously stupid gimmick. And actually, he did pretty well for himself. And I'm not going to lie, man. Chad Gable's shish gimmick has grown on me fantastically well. But yeah, let's talk about Johnny Gargano versus Chad Gable. Of course, both lock up. There was a bunch of technical wrestling in the beginning of this match. We get a bunch of side headlock takeovers by both. So basically, both kind of exchange shots right there. We get Johnny wrestling chants. We get technical wrestling by both. Of course, both lock up once again. We get a leg takedown by Chad Gable. At this point, Gable is in control over Johnny Gargano. We get a side headlock by Gargano, followed by a Hurricane Rana. After that, he goes for the arm drag and a drop kick. We get a roll through by Gargano. Then we get a roll through and a near fall once again. Gable goes for the right hand. We got a chop by Gable into the corner. Gable at this point is in control over Gargano. We get a bunch of waistlock switches by both. After that, we get a kick by Gargano. Gable is on the outside. We get a drop kick by Gargano. After that, Gargano is on the apron, followed by a cannonball onto the outside. Or it looked like a senton. Whatever. After that, once we're back from commercial break, Gable is in control. Gable goes for the side slam. We get a cover by Gable into near fall. Gable is in control of the left knee of Gargano. Gargano then drives the foot onto the head of Chad Gable. Gargano then escapes. Then Gable comes back. We get a couple of right hands by Gargano. We get a running crossbody by Gargano. Then we get a clothesline followed by an enziguri. Gargano then hits the spear. After that, we get a cover and a near fall. Gargano then proceeds to go for the back elbow. We get a roll-up, but then Gargano escapes and applies the ankle lock on Gargano. After that, we get repeated kicks by Gargano, but then Gable picks up Gargano. He drops Gargano face first to the mat. We get a cover into near fall. Gable then goes to the top, but then proceeds to miss the moonsault attempt. We get a kick blocked by Gargano. Gable goes for the German suplex. We get a cover and a near fall. At this point, Gable goes to the top. We get a flying headbutt by Gable, but then Gargano applies the Gargano escape. After that, Gable goes for the ankle lock, but then Gargano escapes and takes Gable to the corner. We get a rolling German, but then by Gable, but then Gargano actually counters that with a roll-up. We get a roll-up reversal, and we get a near fall. After that, Gargano with a kick to the right by Chad Gable. Gargano then fires back and goes for the clothesline. Gable then gets taken to the outside with Otis. We get a suicide dive by Johnny Gargano after that. Gargano then takes Gable back into the ring. Otis then goes for he hits the super kick on Otis after that. Then he kick on Gable, followed by a DDT. We get a cover, and Johnny Gargano wins the match. So overall thoughts on this match, it was a great showing by Johnny Gargano, and definitely, from realistically, from first glance, you would be like, wait, his first match is against Chad Gable? That makes absolutely no sense. But realistically, if you honestly think about it, Gable can bring out a fantastic match with literally anybody. So realistically, if you had, a perfect opponent for Johnny Gargano, it was definitely Chad Gable. And they delivered an absolute banger. And of course, Johnny Gargano wins the match since it was, of course, his debut. So then after that, Theory cuts a promo. So actually, what happens is Johnny leaves the ring. And what happens is Otis comes in, and then Johnny goes for a series of super kicks, and then he does the suck it on Otis, which is hilarious. Johnny then leaves the ring, and then Austin Theory, out of nowhere, from behind, hits Johnny Gargano with the Money in the Bank briefcase. Then he gives a selfie on Johnny Gargano. After that, Theory cuts a promo. He asked if he ruined Johnny's moment, and then we get a bunch of what chants by the crowd. And Kevin Owens comes out. So Kevin Owens comes out, and, he cuts a promo, and Theory immediately cuts him off. He immediately cuts him off and talks about how he is sick of of his moments getting interrupted. He's going, to take over this entire industry, and says, basically, KO replies that we have heard all of that last week, and he probably, does not have any more issues with his jaw, but they heard all this for months, but last week he looked at him in the eyes, and he was basically the handpicked future of the company, but that is no longer the case. It's not how it works anymore. Guys like him and Gargano, they do not look like him, and Theory says that, yeah, you're right, you do not look like me, and no one looks at him. Theory says that he's down, more than 5 months, and he's done more in 5 months than both Johnny Gargano and Kevin Owens did in 5 years. KO at this point goes off. And I mean, he goes legitimately off. Possibly the promo of the year. I may be exaggerating a little bit there, but the promo that Kevin Owens cut on Austin Theory was absolutely fantastic. And I even tweeted out right after this segment, give the fucking championship to this man. This guy absolutely deserves it. If there's anybody that deserves the WWE championship, it's guys like Kevin Owens. It's literally right there. I'm pointing right there. It's guys like Kevin Owens. But, talks about basically Kevin Owens cuts this whole passionate promo on what it takes to be the face of the WWE. And, Kevin Owens says that statements like that show how much of a delusional jackass he is. He looked at everything that he has accomplished, won the U.S. title without getting that contract in the ladder match he was not supposed to be in. The Universal title was handed to him as well. Actually, Kevin Owens actually talks about that. It says that was where their similarities stop, and that is completely different. And at this point, they are completely different. KO says that how many guys in the last 2 decades have come by that look like you? How many of those guys fizzled out and went nowhere? People like him and Gargano have come around WWE and made it to the level that they are at. People like him are 1 in a dozen, and him and Gargano are the 1 in 100 or 1,000, I believe was what he said. These people need Gargano and Kevin Owens because they are the heart and soul of this business. Theory is the appendix of this business. He hopes he claims everything he has, and he has been watching him, and he is telling him right now he doesn't think he has what it takes to be the future of WWE. And KO wants to prove him wrong, and then he basically yells at Austin Theory and kind of in a way technically gives him a fucking motivational speech. But at the same time, he just goes completely off on Austin Theory. Says like, bro, you have absolutely nothing. You don't have anything what it takes to be successful in the WWE, and he wants him to prove him wrong. And then Theory literally replies by showing off his muscle. And after that, he says that he will never be like him, Kevin. And Kevin says that, that he tries to talk sense into him, but this will. And he proceeds to slap Theory. After that, both Brawl, the referees, and producers come out and separate them. Kevin Owens then runs back, and then KO hits the stunner. He tries to go for the stunner, but then Theory escapes. So what are my thoughts on this segment? Again, this was a fantastic segment. I love the direction that they are taking Kevin Owens. Realistically, I love the direction that they're taking him because this is the prize fighter Kevin Owens. This is like 2015, 2016 Kevin Owens. Now, granted, 2016, of course, that was where he won the Universal Championship, but his run, in my opinion, really wasn't that good. Really, the only thing that was going for it was the whole best friends with Chris Jericho, but that's another story for another time. But overall, I love this version of Kevin Owens. I love the direction that they are taking Kevin Owens. And again, once again, after this promo, give the fucking championship to Kevin Owens. Please, just give the title to him. So then Bianca Belair, of course, she is the Raw Women's Champion, has an open challenge with Sonya Deville. So Sonya Deville, of course, was the one that accepted the open challenge from Bianca Belair. And she put her Raw Women's Championship on the line against her. Overall thoughts on this match is I thought it was a pretty good match for what it was. Really, it was not really my cup of tea, but it was not that bad of a match. But we get a waistlock takedown by Bianca Belair. Bianca then drives Deville on her knee. At this point, we get a cover and a near fall. She proceeds to pick up Sonya Deville, then drops Bianca. We get a shotgun dropkick by Sonya Deville. We get a cover and a near fall. At this point, Deville is in control over Bianca Belair. She drives her into the corner. Bianca then escapes. We get a back elbow by Bianca, followed by a boot. At this point, Bianca goes for the forearm and then a series of clotheslines. Then she hits the vertical suplex. After that, she goes for the cartwheel moonsault. After that, we get a cover and a near fall. At this point, Deville is on the outside. Bianca then is on the apron. Then she lands on her feet from the moonsault attempt. Deville then goes for the clothesline. Once we're back from commercial break, Deville is in control. We get repeated kicks by Sonya Deville, followed by a takedown. Then she goes for the side headlock attempt. After that, Bianca goes for the takedown. Bianca then gets driven to the ring post. At this point, Sonya is in control. We get a roll-up by Sonya Deville, and then Bianca goes for the kick, and then she proceeds to pick up Sonya Deville. proceeds to hit the fallaway slam after that. Bianca then misses the standing moonsault. Sonya then gains the advantage, but we get a cover engineer fall. We get a kick to the chest of Bianca, but then later Bianca goes for the spine buster. We get a cover engineer fall once again, but then Bianca picks up Sonya Deville. Sonya then counters with a roll-up, and then we get a near fall. Sonya then goes to the top and then drives the knee off to the top. We get a cover engineer fall. Sonya proceeds to apply the sleeper hold after that. She drives Sonya into the corner, but then Bianca picks up Deville with the KOD, the Kiss of Death. We get a cover, and Bianca Belair retains the Raw Women's Championship. Again, realistically, it was not a bad match. Not really my cup of tea, but overall, not a bad match whatsoever. Most likely, we're probably going to be getting a match between Bayley and Bianca Belair in the near future. We get Omos versus two jobbers. Yes, Omos makes his triumphant return to World Wrestling Entertainment. And this was so funny. So, this is hilarious. So, when Omos was making his entrance, there was the screen went completely black. And the screen went completely black. And what happened was there was technical difficulties on the WWE side of things. And everybody was making jokes about, oh my God, Omos literally cut off the entire feed because of how big he was. Like, that was the funniest shit I've ever seen, man. That was hilarious. But it was great to see that. So basically, it was a jobber squashing match. Realistically, not a lot has happened. Omos just threw everybody across the ring. He applies the Cobra Clutch. Then after that, he hits a bunch of boots, and Omos wins the match. So what do I see them doing with Omos? Honestly, I do not know. But we're just going to have to wait and see in the near future. Really, I don't think, I'm be honest, I was never really the biggest Omos fan, to be quite honestly. I just thought it was just, Omos was Omos. And again, I don't know the direction that they're going to be taking Omos, and I honestly think they don't have any plans for Omos because, I don't know. It's just realistically, I'm not really that into Omos. That's just me. He's not my cup of tea. Edge and Rhea are backstage. Rhea, of course, is begging Edge that, this match doesn't need to happen. Edge says that he needs to pay for what he did, that being Dominic, and says that this match will happen whether he likes it or not. After that, we get a backstage interview with Seth Rollins. Talks about how Rollins does not want to talk to anyone. He calls himself the face of Monday Night Raw. Lashley then enters the fray and tells him he's not the face of Monday Night Raw. Says that he doesn't have any gold, and he who has the gold is the face of Monday Night Raw. Says that after that, he who has the gold is the face of Raw. Rollins says that isn't exactly the title he was talking about, but he will gladly win that title, and WWE has booked Seth Rollins versus Bobby Lashley for the U.S. title next week on Raw, which is definitely going to be a banger of a match, whether you, realistically, that's going to be a fire-ass match. I'm definitely excited to see where they go with there. So I'm excited for that. The Miz, of course, gets interviewed, quote-unquote, earlier this week. There's constant interruptions with, of course, Miz's kids and, of course, Maurice. Really, the storyline, of course, that they're telling is the whole Dexter Lumis shtick, of course, that they did starting a couple of weeks ago. And basically, Dexter Lumis attacked the Miz after that steel cage match in the end of Raw. And WWE had this weird-ass shot of Dexter Lumis literally sticking out from under the ring, which was creepy as shit. But overall thoughts on this whole Dexter Lumis thing, it's pretty entertaining to watch. But realistically, in this segment, Miz and Maurice leave. But then all of a sudden, the camera turns to inside the house of Miz, and Dexter Lumis is in his house and shows a freaking picture of basically Miz's family, like a drawn photo of Miz's family. Which Dexter Lumis is Dexter Lumis. That's all I'm going to say about that. But we got our main event. We got Dominic Mysterio versus Edge. Overall, this was a pretty good match overall. I mean, really coming into this match, I think everybody should have known that there was going to be a fuck finish regarding this match. But it was a justified, I will say this, it was a justified DQ finish. That's all I'm going to say about that. But the match starts. Edge goes after Dominic. We get repeated clotheslines by Dominic into the corner. Edge goes for the big boot, and then he goes for repeated shots on Dominic. Edge then slams Dominic, but then Dominic rolls over onto the outside. Then he comes back in, but then Edge goes for the lariat, knocking Dominic down. So at this point, realistically, throughout the beginnings of the match, Edge was completely in control, and not only that, Edge was just beating the shit out of Dominic. So after that, he gets taken to the outside. Edge then takes Dominic to the barricade, and then he takes him to the announce table after that. Dominic fights back, and then he tries to send Dominic to the steps, but Edge reverses. Edge then proceeds to mock Dominic, but then he boots him. The referee then looks at Dominic. After that, Rhea takes Edge out without the referee looking, so she's interfering in the match. Dominic then drives Edge to the steel steps on his bad knee. Once we're back from commercial break, Dominic is in control over Edge. Dominic then goes for the Three Amigos. And I will say this, looking at this back on social media, I will say that was not a good interpretation of the Three Amigos. Realistically, it was not really that good. But Dominic goes for the Three Amigos. He goes to the top, but then Edge interferes. Edge and Dominic are on the top. He tries to suplex Dominic, but then Rhea interferes. At this point, Edge gets taken down. After that, Dominic goes for the frog splash. We get a cover and a near fall. Dominic gets taken shoulder first to the ring post. Then Edge face plants Dominic, followed by a clothesline. Then he goes for the swinging neck breaker. We get a cover and a near fall. At this point, Edge gains control. Edge then goes for the execution. He sets up the spear, but then Dominic applies the single leg Boston Crab. At this point, Edge goes for the inside cradle attempt, and we get a near fall after that. Then Edge takes Dominic to the top rope, and then Dominic gets trapped onto the top and the middle rope, and then Edge goes for repeated rights. And at this portion of the match, I absolutely loved what they did here. So Edge goes for the repeated rights. Rey Mysterio actually runs to the ring, and Rey actually, blocks Edge from trying to hit Dominic some more. But then Edge pulls him back, and then all of a sudden, Priest attacks Rey Mysterio. Judgment Day then attack Edge himself, which causes the DQ finish. Edge actually tries to fight back, but then Rhea hits Edge with the chair. Then Dominic hits Edge on his bad knee with the chair. Then all of a sudden they set up the chair onto the knee of Edge. Balor goes to the top. Then he hits the coup de grace off the top onto the bad knee of Edge. The Judgment Day stand tall. Rey and Edge are taken out, and that's how they close Raw this week. Overall thoughts on, number one, this match. I thought this match was absolutely fantastic, and I love the story that they were telling here. But also, I loved the fact that Rey actually came in and tried to block Edge. I think that was a nice little touch that they added right there. But another thing that I really loved was that ending. That ending was a fantastic ending to Raw, in my opinion. Again, this whole storyline when it comes to Judgment Day and Edge and the Mysterios is absolutely fantastic. Now, I see in the near future that we'll probably get Rey Mysterio versus Dominic. I do not know when that will be the case, but I think Edge and Dominic will have a one-on-one match in the near future once again. We're just going to have to wait and see what they do, but overall, Judgment Day stands tall, and I absolutely loved what they did here. It was absolutely fantastic. But overall thoughts on Raw this week, I actually thought Raw was a much better improvement over last week. I thought last week was not really that good of a Raw, mainly because of the fact that, there's just really a lot of things that did not matter, in my opinion, and also it just kind of fell flat after all the wrestling that we got throughout that whole weekend. But Raw this week was definitely a drastic improvement. Was it a fantastic show? No, but it definitely, in my opinion, it definitely got the job done. But yeah, that was my Raw review from September 12th, 2022. Please like, subscribe, comment down below. Push that bell for notifications and be on the lookout for more videos right here on the WrestleHavoc Podcast. Of course, if you guys want to listen to the WrestleHavoc Podcast in audio format, it is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, and Google Podcasts. So if you guys want to listen to the WrestleHavoc Podcast in audio format, it is available on all of those platforms. The link will be in the description below. But as always, it is Flamin' Ricky DeRays from the WrestleHavoc Podcast with the Raw Review, signing out.